Our guest of honor today is Shri Anil Gupta ji, IRS Chief Commissioner of CGST and CX. Next. Sir's profile will be displayed on the LED screen. Shri Gupta is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and a life member of the Indian Institute of Public Administration. Sir is an officer of the Indian Revenue Service, Customs and Central Excise, 1989 batch. In his stint with the government, he has had a vast experience of more than 30 years in tax administration, especially indirect taxes such as central excise, service tax, customs and GST. Sir is also a master trainer in GST and is an acting faculty at NASIN. Sir has also been a member of the GST Law Committee. He has also authored the book Handbook on GST Audit by Tax Authorities, published by Bloomsbury in August 2020. Sir has been ushered with various awards all throughout his career. In appreciation of his work during posting at the DRI, the government awarded the President's Award for rendering exceptionally meritorious service at the risk of life on the occasion of Republic Day 2003. The CMA Ratan Award 2016 was also conferred to Sir by the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Please welcome Sir with a big round of applause. I will request CA PD Rungta ji and CA Kamal Nayan Jain ji to please come up and offer a bouquet, memento and a shawl in welcoming Sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rungta ji and Kamal ji. Thank you so much. I will now request our guest of honor, Shri Anil Gupta ji, IRS Chief Commissioner, to please address the House. Thank you.
The Honorable Justice Shekhar B. Shra, Judge of Calcutta High Court, Chief Guest of today's ceremony, dignitaries on the dais, Shri Ashish Chandan, Principal Commissioner GST North, who will be taking one of the technical sessions, professional colleagues, chartered accountants, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed my privilege to be part of this GST conclave with a very apt theme, decoding the future of the GST, compliance, litigation, and enforcement. First of all, I must congratulate the entire team of ACE Chartered Accountants CPE Study Circle of Eastern Region of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India for organizing this conclave on this theme. As you all know that we'll be completing 6 years of GST introduction on 1st of July 2023. when the GST was introduced way back on 1st July of 2017, there were a lot of apprehensions whether how will be the ride, whether we'll have a smooth sail. And because worldwide the experience of introduction of this kind of reform was not very charming or grateful, and especially keeping in view that we have a federal structures, 29 states, center, all in the pre-GST era, as you all know, having their own taxation systems of taxing sales, supplies, manufacture, services, and so many laws, bringing all them together, building the tax structure. And all of you are witness that it took more than a decade to reach at a consensus to finally launch this mega or one of the biggest reforms in the indirect taxes in the history of India post-independence. But if we look back, we had many ups and downs in the initial years of 2-3 years of GST implementation. But today, after 6 years, we can take pride and say with satisfaction that by and large, this taxation system under GST has stabilized and has benefited all the stakeholders, whether it's government, central or state, whether it's taxpayers, consumers, professionals, tax consultants, advocates, everybody. The end result is that all of us have benefited from these mega reforms. Now, I will not go into the details of what all we have achieved. Just to briefly touch what I see the biggest gain which our manufacturers, retailers, wholesalers, and everybody involved in the supply chain has got is that now we have a uniform single rate for on a particular supply of goods or services throughout India. State borders, which was a big bottleneck for transporting the goods across the countries, are no more there, leading to seamless transportation of the goods throughout the country, and as a result benefiting everyone in terms of reduced cost of transportation as well as time lag. Logistics and warehousing scenario has changed in the country, as you all know, that in the pre-GST era, larger companies used to have warehouses for stocks transfer. That is not required now. So a lot of changes have taken place, benefiting everyone. But there are still a lot of challenges which are yet to be covered. We have covered a lot of ground during the last 6 years, as you know. And another very unique way of implementing the GST has been that from the initial years itself, both the states and the center have been working together through the GST Council mechanism, as you all know. And the government has been very adaptive and have been very responsive in introducing changes in the law or procedures as and when required, keeping in view the difficulties or teething problems faced by the taxpayers, consultants, advisors. So, that's why in the first 2 years, if we see, there were a lot of changes taking place, and it was for many of us very difficult to keep track of the changes happening at that speed in the procedures, laws, rates, etc. But during the last 3-4 years, now we see those frequent changes have reduced, and by and large, we have a system, our IT platform, which was a big challenge during the initial years, facing a lot of glitches. And some would say, perhaps in retrospective, if we think that we introduced the GST before preparing fully ourselves for the system to be launched. But sometimes, as it happens, that some changes or reforms have to be done, and because you cannot have a very perfect and seamless system before launching, many issues, challenges we come to know as we grow and deal with the subject. Now, if we see, there were a lot of discussions in the initial years, also because revenue as expected was not keeping the pace, especially in the first 2 years or so. We were averaging about 90,000 to 1 lakh crore per month. But over the years, gradually, then we faced the COVID in between for 2 years, and the economy was hit, as you all know. But gradually over the years now, the revenues have boosted, increased, and as you all know, last year we clocked with collected revenue of 18 lakhs, averaging about 1.5 lakh crore. And for last few months, we have been consistently hitting this score of 1.4 or 1.5 lakh crore per month. And in fact, April was the highest revenue. April 23 was one of the highest revenue collecting month, where we collected about 1.75 lakh crores in April. And wherever we see, whether in terms of tax base, as Mr. Tarun Gupta has spoken, tax base has widened and almost doubled in the last 6 years, bringing many new persons engaged in the chain of supply in the tax net from about 60 lakhs to 1.4 crore. And during this journey, we, in order to ensure compliance and having a fine balance between compliance and enforcement during the initial years, as you all know, we were more in a hand-holding mode. We are trying to sell this idea of GST to our taxpayers, to all our stakeholders, because as you know, in any change, there is a lot of resistance in the initial stages. So all these Institute of Chartered Accountant, Institute of Cost Accountant, many other institutes, all were partner in this process of selling this idea of GST so that it is adopted and there are no difficulties in the smooth sailing of this idea reform. So that is why initially, as you also know, we had a lot of difficulties in the original concept of return, which was envisaged, return filing of GSTR 1, 2, 3. And finally, we switched over to GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. And over the years, there have been modifications in the return filing module also. And as has been mentioned earlier also, that over the years and over every month, now consistently the compliance in GST return filing has improved a lot and is touching around 90%, whereas about 3 years back it was ranging about 70%. And in order to check the balance, recently we have also made certain changes in the sense that sequential filing of GSTR1 has been introduced, and plus in order to ensure that some persons who are tweaking the system, or we could call it unscrupulous persons who are trying to take undue advantage of the liberal mechanism of GST. We have also recently done that if you have not filed your two GSTR 3B returns, then you cannot file GSTR 1. So these are time-based, need-based changes which we keep so that we strike a fine balance between compliance and enforcement, and ensuring at the end that our genuine, fair taxpayers don't have the difficulty or don't face the difficulty in the sense that they don't fall into the trap that somebody has issued an invoice who is not genuine, non-existence, and the liability comes on them. So that way, keeping in view all these things, we have been making reforms from time to time. Similarly, if we talk of GST registration, I think in the initial years it was one of the easiest, I would say, scheme or method designed that you can take registration without any hassles, and if your registration is not processed in specified time of 3 days, you get a deemed registration. But as we noticed that some unscrupulous, fraudulent people are gaming with the system, misusing this scheme or facility, which was basically intended for larger, genuine taxpayers, because from the very beginning, the architect of the GST has been such that it is trust-based. We are reposing a lot of trust on our taxpayers, and the entire mechanism is IT driven on a GSTN platform where the interaction with the taxpayers and other stakeholders is through a network and involving very little or no physical interaction between the tax administrators and taxpayers. So all these, when we saw that some people are gaming with the system, misusing it by taking fraudulent registrations, then issuing fake invoices, passing on the credit, etc., then we have tightened a bit the registration process, making it Aadhaar based, Aadhaar linked, Aadhaar authentication, and introducing that if you are not Aadhaar based, involving rigorous verification, even physical verification if needed, and also increasing the timeline for processing these registrations from 3 days to 7 days if it is Aadhaar based. and if it is non-Aadhaar based, from 21 days to 30 days. So all these reforms and changes have been taking place, keeping in view the need and also keeping in view that we have to strike a fine balance between ensuring compliance and regulation and trade facilitation, because the better the compliance is, the lesser would be the enforcement. But if we are failing in compliance somewhere, then the enforcement angle would come into picture. Then you also see that over the years we have been making a system like e-invoicing also. If you see, gradually we are bringing more people, taxpayers in the net, where they generate e-invoice. Now it will be 5 crore and above. Earlier it started with 100 crores. So all these reforms and changes which are taking place in GST are keeping in view and mind the requirements, the needs of the taxpayers and our other stakeholders like professional institutes of chartered accountants or cost accountants or company secretary and other advocates, fraternity, everybody keeping in mind. Now, as one of the speakers, Mr. Tarun Gupta, was also mentioning that recently, especially in last few months, or I would say last 2 years or so, we have been hearing a lot about fake registration, fake invoicing, passing of the non-available ITC by the unscrupulous people, and during the last 2 years or so, the department is seized of this problem or challenge and has been trying to deal with it through data analytics, machine learning, AI, data mining, on the basis of various risk parameters, identifying the risky taxpayers or the probable GSTNs who could be fake, and have been targeting them in a very systematic way. And as a part of that drive, the department has also launched a special drive to check and verify all these suspected GSTNs. From 15th of May, we have identified about 30,000 GSTN and the drive is on. And we are finding that a large number of them, these identified GSTNs, are fake or bogus, somewhere ranging from 60 to 70% of the identified taxpayers. These suspected GSTNs are turning out to be fake. Or bogus. So now this all, this enforcement drive, or when we come to know of this magnitude of a problem, it somewhere, I would say that leads to a situation where the government is forced to think of taking some measures to check this menace of fake registration. And in fact, I would say all you professionals have a very, very vast and very important, significant role in this exercise and scheme of things, because many of you are practicing chartered accountant who will be advising, counseling, maybe even defending them on behalf of these taxpayers. So as a responsible professionals, you also have a role to play so that we all together are able to check this menace and minimize. Because ultimately, otherwise, if somebody has gamed with the system, he would vanish. And ultimately, the person who has taken the credit, a liability would come on that person. And by the time he knows, the magnitude of the liability may be so high that he is not able to meet. So that leads to unnecessary, unwarranted disruption in the economy. Recently, we have also, all of you are also aware about a Noida case where all these unscrupulous people are playing with the PANs, Aadhaar numbers, other details, changing, modifying their identities and creating then certain identities. And this problem of forgery or misusing the PANs, Aadhaars, electricity bills or other addresses, etc., it is not limited to GST only. GST is one, but otherwise it's a bigger problem for the economy because you are using somebody's identity, you are committing offenses under other laws also. It may be used for money laundering. So many. It's a very intricate issue. Not limited to only GST. GST could be one of the motive for creating such identities. Another way of ensuring this compliance as well as enforcement is because this entire GST architect is based on self-assessment, self-compliance through the GSTN portal, starting from registration to filing of return, payment, etc. Everything is on that. So the law has envisaged a mechanism of audit, because audit is the systematic scientific way of ensuring the compliance of the GST law, as well as it is a tool, I would say it is a big tool to educate the taxpayers and all the stakeholders if they have committed any mistake, procedural or otherwise, leading to any non-payment of due tax or some other compliances. So it is detected in a collaborative way through audits, systematic audits. Because audit mechanism is a very transparent system of dealing with the taxpayers, where due intimation is given to the taxpayers. Certain information, documents, and returns are already available on the portal, which are mapped to the audit officers. Then certain additional information, if he requires, he can call for that. And on the basis of that, he prepares a desk review or an audit plan, and then audit is executed. And as you know, most of the audits are done desk based, which means they don't require any physical visit to the premises of the taxpayers. And by and large, in the COVID period, we have been conducting desk audits to a large extent, and very few cases a visit to the especially large or medium taxpayers, a visit is required to the premises of the taxpayers. And then you are also told about whatever objections or issues are there, and you are given an opportunity to give your viewpoint on that, and then the audit is finalized and settled, either by way of you pay up whatever is, if you agree with the audit objections. So this is a very systematic scheme envisaged in the law for ensuring compliance of GST law. And audit is not new. In fact, audit, all you are professionals, you are already well aware with the audit mechanism. It is there in every stream of business. Auditing, whether you do internal audit, statutory audit, tax audit, so many. So it is even for the owners, because there is a separation of management and owners. So even for the owners, it's a tool to ensure that his business is run in a professional way and there are no leakages in the system. With these words, I again thanks all the organizers of this conclave, and I am sure that the deliberations during the various technical sessions which are planned during the day would certainly benefit all the stakeholders, members, and I wish success to this GST conclave. Thank you very much.